Hello, creativity is today's topic, and I think it's really important for us to learn to be more creative in relation to the entire landscape of our lives and the way in which we lead our lives. And the natural initial question, I guess, to ask is, what actually is creativity? And it's a good question and well thought. We can all be creative. To some, creativity is about making new connections, and that is literally physiologically true within our neurology. Creativity is the mind's growing edge, often involves a lot of discovery. By creating new connections, you build your brain power and develop mental and interpersonal flexibility, which can begin to heighten your ability to do a huge array of things with much more ease. Imagine this, albeit metaphorically. Every time you link two things together, you create a third entity. That new connection can itself then connect with other ideas, additional possibilities. Imagine the impact that this can have in your imagination and throughout a system such as your brain. Neil Armstrong first stepped onto the moon in the 1960s. Though there's a fair few foil hat wearing individuals who are incredibly creative and believed it happened in a film studio. But that event changed our beliefs and thoughts about the universe. It also altered thoughts and beliefs about human inventiveness and skill. And this event helped us to recognize that if we want something enough, we can find ways to do something that we may have been believing to be impossible before. I reckon this gave many people some powerful and liberating thoughts and beliefs about human capability. I loved it when Mars rover landed on Mars those years ago, and the way that it meant we started entertaining the idea of getting people to land on Mars too. Being creative on an individual level has the same potential. Like I said, when you connect two things together, you go beyond both of them, and you have the possibility of forming new beliefs about yourself, your own potential. When I'm studying and researching, I feel like my brain is literally growing and stretching. I'm hoping that's not too scary. I love watching my children playing, when they're drawing, painting, or moulding huge blobs of glitter putty into seemingly rude shapes whilst singing happily to themselves. And they seem to be in another world. They have such vivid imaginations. So we all need to give ourselves permission and time and energy to make new connections and links, which is much of what creativity is about. It's about the process rather than the outcome or the final product, really, as well. You can be creative, at home, at work, when changing habits, when updating behaviors, when resolving issues, or just trying to make your life happier in any way you can. You can be creative with words, with ideas, with thoughts, with materials, food, the kind of fun you have. You can be creative with your surroundings as well as your internal world. As I already alluded to earlier, creativity creates something new, even if every ingredient is already known to you or is familiar. An insight, for example, is creative because the new conclusion is gleaned from information that you already had. It's the new perspective that makes the difference. Creativity is sometimes about being absorbed and enjoying doing what you're doing, paying attention to detail, having a grand vision, being excited and playful, wondering what would happen if. And it's important not only for artists, inventors or designers. It's key in our daily lives, both professionally and personally. It helps us find better solutions to challenges that we face. It enables us to think broadly about ourselves, our futures, and it gives us more opportunities and choices with which we can shape our lives. What's interesting is that being creative is not something we're born with or not. And research supports this, by the way. Creativity is not something that's just innate in someone. For example, a poll of Fast Company's most creative people in business found that 73% believe creativity can be learned. And according to those polled, it's more of an attitude than a talent. And with that in mind, within this video, I wanted to share some ways of increasing your creativity, including self-hypnosis that I'm going to speak about at the end. Environmentally, the University of Minnesota researchers proved through a study that chaotic environments can improve our creativity. Your desk is a good place to start, regardless of whether it's in your office or at home. You can place objects on it that you really like, or those that can bring some good memories. But if it's messy, pictures of family, friends, or some interesting events that you had in the past help work. Souvenirs from past travels or even toys can help as well. Be creative on choosing what you'll be looking at on a daily basis, and pick objects that you really like. Feel free to change it, swap it about from time to time to keep it interesting. And then beyond your desk area and focus, focusing upon your wider environment is also important. Many companies invest significantly in relax areas and provide their employees with things like beanbags, table football, Lego bricks, all to make sure that employees stay creative when they're having a break. You can do very similar things if you work at home, in particular. What would give you a shot of joy and stimulate your brain to think differently for a short period of time, and then go and do it when you stop work for a few minutes. To stimulate thinking out of the box, simply, consider moving, going to different places, having meetings somewhere different, even outdoors. Park areas, coffee shops can make for different environments. I often meet coaching clients at my beach hut. It's wonderful. Go change your environment from time to time. Finally, the people we surround ourselves with in those environments are key. Spend time in groups of people that are going to help you to think creatively. An open-minded approach, challenging our views and having diversity within the group always helps. Now, you want to find the right frame of mind. Explore the kind of states that you associate with being creative. Discover properly what it is that triggers and maintains you being creative. In line with the notion of using your environment, like I was mentioning previously, what are the better times of day? What's the best environment for you? Do you need to be alone or with others, or alone in the midst of others? Do you need sounds or silence or subtle background sounds? Build a profile of your creativity state, so to speak, and then make time and space for it on a regular basis, instead of just kind of waiting passively for some divine intervention or for it to just kind of happen on its own, lightning bolt style. As a creative individual, sometimes we can experience anxiety. It may seem disruptive because it makes you feel a tad empty or disjointed or unclear or without direction. However, these things are often useful. In The Creative Attitude by Abraham Maslow, he stated that if you try to be rational and controlled and orderly in the first stage of the process, you'll never really get to it. That the chaos and the confusion has its place. The muddle that we feel is often an important condition that precedes the emergence of new ideas. You can compare this period to the way that light reflects in a prism, that comes in and is broken and emerges in this kind of dazzling new form that changes as you change your perspective of it. So don't necessarily try to impose a sense of order on your thoughts and feelings in those initial periods of being creative. Complete harmony during the initial stages of creativity can sometimes lead to nothing being produced. A bit of internal grappling is often very valuable. And think simple. We do have a tendency to overcomplicate from time to time. If you've got a new idea, try to describe it in one or two sentences to get it clear. Once you have it in that form, it's worth writing it down, perhaps, in a notebook or notes on your phone. People generate many ideas, but forget lots of them. So routinely writing them down and perhaps even editing and connecting them later on when they come on. Create a list on a regular basis to capture some of the most interesting and stimulating things. I use the Evernote app It's free and it shares files across all of your devices, for example. Another important point is not to fear failure or worry about being wrong. Really, there's no such thing. Creativity is about spotting opportunities. Some of them will turn out, not necessarily to be the best ideas, but get confident in looking at new solutions. Ultimately, even if just 1 in 10 ideas becomes great and serves you well, you're going to forget about the 9 that were average. And stay open-minded. Don't disregard ideas because it initially looks silly. That approach will allow you to widen your perspective and spot new opportunities. Don't immediately edit your thoughts, and be exponential. Make creativity a part of everything that you do. Brainstorming by yourself can be a good exercise, but it probably won't replace the dynamic of doing it within a group. You become exponentially more than the sum of your parts. Do collaborate with people that can share different perspectives and contribute to your creativity, because it can sometimes be a result of synergy and building relationships with others. Not every idea is going to be perfect, especially when you start to think of it, and try not to be a perfectionist. Allow an area for mistakes. Overall, if you are aiming to be creative, it's better done than, it's better you doing it than trying to theorize it too much. As a result, you may see many good solutions that can be improved once initially implemented. And borrow ideas, improve them. The world is full of great ideas that were never implemented. If you spot something interesting, build on that and find your own way. Make sure it's done appropriately, and remember that synergy can bring amazing outcomes. And leave the comfort zone. Try something new, hobbies or responsibilities. Keep your reality changing and learn from new experience. If you already tried that, you can go to the next level. Put yourself in more challenging situations. It can be a very positive surprise to see how much more creative we can become under such an environment or within such an environment. Leaving a comfort zone almost always offers us new opportunities. Think of different ways to do the stuff that you are familiar with. Change the order in which you do things. Use different things. Use your less favored hand. As soon as we break routines, we move from a state where we're on autopilot to one where we are alive and alert. That autopilot has its place, but you get to exercise unfamiliar brain connections and help build new links in your brain, which is a glorious feeling. And be playful. Play, it's a bit of a loaded word, and when used in relation to adults, the context is very often perceived as negative. In order to create, play should be an indispensable ingredient in your life. That is, often you'll need to play with materials, with concepts, with perspectives, and to direct yourself, away from reality, to fantasize. Carl Jung, the prominent psychotherapist, once said, without playing with fantasy, no creative work has yet come into being. Part of the reason that the children are so innately creative in their actions and their speech is that they engage frequently in fantasy. And then get into the habit of asking questions of yourself, asking questions of your environment, your life, what if, what else, how else, and go beyond what you first thought. Find more and different ideas. By asking more, you allow yourself to be more creative. Do remember that your creativity benefits at times from having to function within certain limits. Rollo May, in his Courage to Create, states that the creative act arises out of the struggle of human beings with and against that which limits them. And one might argue that the more limitations we have, the more creative we must be, and the stronger our creativity becomes. So when or if you hit a problem, pretend your usual solution's not available. And this can work in many different ways. If your computer crashed today, how else might you do your work? If you usually debate face to face, what would happen if you wrote things down instead? Some solutions may be no better than the ones you're used to. Others may offer you brilliant new opportunities, so do things differently. And to practice that, sometimes we can see how many different results we can get with the same ingredients. I'm sure many of you know that there was a cookbook called Recipes 1, 2, 3 by Roseanne Gold, in which every recipe is made out of only 3 ingredients. And relax, take time out and relax. Trying too hard, attempting to force creativity or an idea or a creative activity can sometimes be problematic and kill the creative process. There'll come a time where your conscious work must stop and you experience a short sort of interlude of relaxation. And that's crucial time. Studies have shown that during that crossover from the period of conscious work to the period of relaxation, the very idea the creative person has been hoping for and searching for emerges. And the break away from the concentrated effort allows creativity to breathe and surface and bring you the gifts needed to spark your work. And it's important to understand that arises from the alternation of intense concentration and relaxation. Also, if you want to be more creative, it can also help to alter and vary the stance of your sense of self and use information already within you, but perhaps in a different way. Your perception of anything or any experience depends on the position from which you perceive it. I'm going to mention 3 positions here that are used in the therapeutic world and are useful for building and developing creativity. And they're often referred to as the sort of first, second, third positions. And we can talk about many more, but this is just kind of to stimulate and spark creativity. In the first position, you're in your own body, looking out through your own eyes, seeing things from your own point of view. But being in the second position means stepping into someone else's shoes, imagining what it's like to be them, looking at the world through their eyes. The third position is taking the stance of a third person or of the environment that's viewing the events in which you're involved, a bit like being a fly on the wall. How many times have I wanted to do that? You see, taking different perceptual positions enables you to step out of what you're currently experiencing and experience yourself in a fresh, new light. It can spice up your perception of so many things, and it can make it easier to kind of lavish lots of creative thought from an angle that you may not have considered. Doing this also allows you to see yourself from a different perspective and gather different kinds of information, both about yourself and your own creative processes. Taking such different positions enables you to access information that you may have been overlooking, and it's such a tonic for the creative process. So how about, in addition to having your ongoing experience of life solely seeing from inside your own eyes in the first position, how about you wonder what it's like to be someone else in the same situation, for example, from that second position, and look at your surroundings and life from a very different perspective, from the position of a neutral observer, and see how that ignites the creativity in your brain. Imagine how other people might see things. As I've said, I think this is especially useful if that person was someone to have a good level of creativity and inspiration too. And see yourself and others as if from an outside perspective, looking at the larger picture. And you can think of using this idea of taking different perceptual positions when you encounter any kind of block, or when planning a project or evaluating a situation, or if you ever feel stuck on something, or if you're ever in need of a bit more inspiration and want to find more things to enjoy about what it is that you're focused upon. It's very useful with our creativity. So far, I've included lots of different strategies and methods for enhancing your creativity. And I encourage you to employ as many of these as you can and continue to work at it. And then it'll, happen more naturally. It'll flow more and more. And I mentioned earlier the importance of relaxing from time to time so as not to stifle the creative process. You know, I often find that my best ideas come when I'm out running, or when I'm driving or walking the dog, or having a shower, or engaged in any kind of automatic activity where your mind floats a bit. Creative people understand that at these times ideas can come almost miraculously. Albert Einstein is cited as saying once, you know, why is it I get my best ideas in the morning when I'm shaving? And the answer was, of course, that, you know, he was at ease. He was engaged in a simple activity that didn't require masses of conscious effort. And so his new thoughts, they were free to rise to the surface. And I'm going to show a way of doing that with self-hypnosis. So keep an active mind, explore, record, question. Creativity is an amazing thing that some people feel is gifted to you, but all human beings are capable of being creative. It's just a matter of organizing thoughts, doing something about the things most people don't think about, you know. So use self-hypnosis, induce hypnosis first of all. You can do so by any means you desire or know of. You can use the process in my Science of Self-Hypnosis book, or you can watch the instructional videos on my YouTube channel for free. Once you've induced hypnosis, you then want to engage in some mindfulness. Be mindful of your entire body and mind. It's important to tune into your body and into your mind for this session to really be effective. You'll begin by being aware of your entire body as one, and your breathing, and take time to run through this much more thoroughly than I'm explaining it. You'll spend some time just being passive, being a sort of detached observer, and contented to notice what you notice, feel what you feel, and so on. Once you've done that patiently and thoroughly, you then want to recall a time when you were creative. Perhaps it was an occasion where you were with others, or perhaps you were just pleased with yourself for creating a solution, or having a great idea. But just consider a time when you were creative, or imagine what it would be like if you really can't think of anything. And think about how that felt, how you thought, how you communicated with yourself, the sense of knowing what creativity is like, even if just in a small way. Imagine that by thinking this way, you've ignited your creativity, like you created a spark of creativity that's ready to grow and expand and amplify greatly. And with that spark created, you then want to focus on the area around and within your head, and move your awareness to your brain, as unusual as that may seem, and get a sense of its position within your head. And as much as possible, imagine tuning into your brain. And then start to roll some questions around inside of your mind. If creativity has a colour, what colour is that for you? If creativity has a sound, what sound is that for you? If creativity were a sensation, what does it feel like for you? And imagine that feeling, that sound, that colour, then beginning to spread through your brain. Imagine the colour, the sound, the feeling slowly and surely beginning to work through your brain, soaking into it, and then enhancing that creativity spark into something else altogether. Imagine that your brain is lighting up. Let your awareness continue to move around slowly, and let more parts of your brain become illuminated. And imagine that by doing this, you're starting to connect more of the areas of your brain together. And imagine and believe that leads to you now allowing your mind and brain to create a very clear and powerful connection that draws upon more of your life experiences, more of your knowledge, more aspects of your life, and creates an illumination within your brain. And as this grows and spreads, imagine that creativity symbolically and healthily occurring within you. Let you amplify the inspiration in your brain that's creating conditions for it to create more. And you bring more of your lifetime's observations into your mind, and you begin to swirl around more and more wonderful ideas and notions, and feel inspired. And it's like you are unearthing more and more from within your brain and from within yourself, and it feels so wonderful to do so. Enjoy it. That's important. And as you feel the difference in your brain, using more of what you already have, spend as much time as you like cultivating this in your imagination in conjunction with hypnosis and the hypnotic mindset I speak about, and create a sense of creativity within you. And once you've spent enough time on that step and you get a sort of tangible sense of being more creative, the sort of penultimate step is that, as you're basking in the creativity, you use your cognitions and build some belief in yourself, affirm to yourself something along the lines of, I am more and more creative, or creativity flows through me more and more, or I feel creative, I am creative, I have access to my creativity, I can be more creative using my own mind, those kinds of things, and just kind of repeat that affirmation, that positive cognition over and over. Say it to yourself, believe in it, undeniably convince yourself. And when you feel some belief in the words that you're repeating to yourself, you can start to start bringing it to an end. And you start that by comfortably just reflecting for a few moments, thinking about how different your life's going to be as a result of being so much more creative, and start to think about all the wonderful things that you're going to do as a result of being so much more creative, And hold all the wonderful feelings of creativity within you, and then you start to bring the session to an end. You exit hypnosis. If you use my own protocol as shown in my Science of Self-Hypnosis book, then you count yourself up and out from 1 through to 5. Otherwise, just open your eyes, wiggle your toes and your fingers, take some deep breaths, get oriented to the place that you're in. That's it. Follow as many of the great steps that I've offered up in this video. Add a daily dose of self-hypnosis. Follow this particular process to really advance your creativity, and then go rule your life. Do subscribe to this channel. Do go visit my college website for details of my online and classroom-based courses and my members areas, all filled with wonderful things. I send you my very best wishes. Goodbye for now.